So the Atlas of Drowned Towns started about, in my head, maybe 17 years ago when I was a master's student and I was studying a community that I had personal and professional connections to that had been moved to make way for the reservoir for a large dam. The name of the community is called Detroit. It's on the west side of the Cascades. My wife's grandmother went to school there. And in the 1950s, they built a dam. They, being the Army Corps of Engineers, built a dam there. I learned that it was one of many dams, dozen in the Willamette Valley itself and dozens throughout the American West and hundreds in the United States, thousands throughout the world, that displaced or ultimately basically disappeared communities. I'm really interested to know these stories. Historians and scholars know a little bit about individual places, but we haven't really done much to try to understand the connections between those places, what we can learn from those places. And as I said, there are a lot. In the American West, lots of dams were built during the so-called dam boom years of the 1930s and especially 50s and 60s. Some of them are very small, and they don't have much of an archive. The Atlas of Drowned Towns is a digital public history project. There's a website, a database. We have community outreach events. Yeah, it's starting with the American West, and then we'll hopefully spill out to the rest of the United States, North America, and the world.
So I am a graduate research assistant, so I'm a graduate student in the history department. I do a bunch of different things, kind of depends on the week. So we work with a developer to create a website. So as part of that, we upload different avenues of research that we come up with, different artifacts, different oral histories, like all sorts of various things. So part of it's uploading that, part of it's researching tips that come in. That also leads to finding new drowned towns, finding new dams, the drowned towns, and things along those lines. But it varies quite widely, just kind of depends on the week.
They didn't have their own newspaper. They didn't have a city hall. So they don't have the kind of traditional records that we think of as historians, that historians usually use and social scientists use to tell stories about the past and to explain these places. So we have to go out and find those materials. Sometimes they're hidden away in existing archives, but often we have to find the people that used to live there or their descendants and do oral history interviews with them to try to gather some of those stories. We have flatbed scanners, and we have oral history recorders and a 3D scanner, and we invite people from the community to come and share the artifacts that they have. Photographs, diaries, high school yearbooks, that sort of thing. We scan it all and we upload it to our database and we share it on the website. Well, it depends dam to dam. Usually the news comes out pretty far in advance, maybe even as far as 10 years. The dam building agencies will start poking around and figuring things out. So people will start, but it's usually only a process of about maybe 3 years from actual, like, you're going to have to move to people having to move. And that time includes the dam building agencies go in and do a real estate valuation assessment. They'll go through court proceedings if they have to. Sometimes people don't like the offer that they've been given and they take the dam building agency to court to demand more. Often people hear drowned towns and they think of towns that were sort of accidentally drowned. So, for instance, the Teton Dam failure in eastern Idaho. And there are some other examples of really tragic, horrible things like that. This is not that. This is about communities that were deliberately displaced. I think also another of the misunderstandings that you'll see is people saying, oh, there was a town that's under that reservoir. And maybe that's true, but maybe that town had already been gone for a while before they built a dam there. And then the last misunderstanding, which is one that I'm sort of struggling to figure out how to help people understand, including myself, is that these stories of displacement are not just about the time immediately before, but they go back centuries to the stories of displacing indigenous people from those lands that then became towns, that then became reservoirs. I'm trying to figure out how to tell that longer story and to explain.